What you're about to listen to is part two of the Everyone Loves a Bad Guy look into Disney villains. This is a show that I used to host from 2013 to 2015. The original air date for this particular episode was December 12th, 2013. Part one, which we released last week to open Cruella week, since Cruella, the latest Disney live-action film, was released, looked at the golden age of Disney. It was Snow White up through Oliver and Company. Remembered. You can listen to that. It's now up in the archives. We just released that last week. Now, to close this particular week, we look at part two of our Disney villains. This covers the Disney Renaissance up through what was at the time the contemporary release of Frozen. So you can listen to myself and Mark Radlich discuss that on this particular show. I hope you are enjoying these re-releases of old shows. I very much enjoyed hosting this show, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it. As a bit of a housekeeping note, we have a couple of links down in the description for products that are willing to throw a little bit of support our way towards what we do here. First up, we have our list. We have Amazon Music. We can give you, any listeners of the W2M network, a free 30 days of Amazon Music. Click the link in the description below. You can find a bunch of the music listed here because we are talking Disney villains. And Disney villains have Disney villain songs, and they are great, mostly. Individual results will vary, but Disney villain songs are some of the best music that Disney produces. If you'd like to find some of those, you can do so via Amazon Music. If not, you can find other stuff to help drown the sorrow of not having that in, but Amazon Music has a wide catalog of titles and artists, genres, subgenres, sub-subgenres. It's a lot of fun. 30 days, free. Did I mention that? Free? No risk. No risk whatsoever. Free 30 days of the service on us. Let them know that the link below lets them know that we are the ones who sent you. Helps us out tremendously if you do so. Our second Our second sponsor for the evening is Grammarly. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2Mnetwork. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2Mnetwork. It's a wonderful service, and if there's a few places you really don't want to have bad grammar, places like LinkedIn or official emails that you might be sending back and forth. Try not to sound like some kind of brain-dead Neanderthal. It'll help you out. It's a good service. Click the link below. It will help all of us out to let them know that we sent you there. We thank them for their support, and we thank you for listening. Without further ado, back in time to 2013, and Everyone Loves a Bad Guy Disney Villains Part 2.
When the devil is too busy and death a bit too much, they call on me by name, you see, for my special touch. To the gentlemen, I'm misfortune. To the ladies, I'm surprise. But call me by any name, anyway, it's all the same. I'm the fly in your suit, I'm the pebble in your shoe, I'm the bee beneath your bed, I'm the bump on every head, I'm the heel on which you slip, I'm a pin in every head, I'm the thorn in your side, makes you wiggle and ride. And it's so easy when you're evil. This is the life you see, the devil tips his hat to me. I do it all because I'm evil, and I do it all for free. Your tears are all the pay I'll ever need.
Listening to Everyone Loves a Bad Guy. I am your late host, not dead late, but late to the party, Mr. Robert Winfrey. You've been hearing the antics of the mandated reporter, the Johnny Carson to my Jay Leno, the how deep can I go with this? Hang on, I'm going to go deep with this one. The Eric Bischoff to my Brad Maddox, the Terry Funk to my Bubba Ray Dudley, the Eddie Murphy to my Kevin Hart. Okay, he's the man. I'm just kind of here taking up space, and we are going to be wrapping up the proper discussion of Disney villains tonight, and we will be. Next week, we'll do Pixar. So anyone who's just interested in Pixar villains, next week, there will be no Pixar discussion tonight because that's how I chose to separate it. And Mark said, I don't want to talk about Pixar. They make me feel stuff, so let someone else do it.
Yeah, I don't. Listen, people got to hear enough of me talking about my personal life and the things that made me cry during the Toy Story podcast. So if you really want to hear me cry for an hour, then, that's fine, but maybe we should find a different...
All right, so let's, as we're, 8 minutes and change behind schedule...
I've already intimated that Gaston and his little henchmen were gay and should have gotten together themselves.
Everyone could have been happy then.
Well, that was what I started the podcast with, other than alluding to the fact that I was all three members of the original NWO because I was taken over. In
our case, wouldn't it be the BWO?
World Order?
Yeah. They're taking over, too.
And the Latino World Order?
No, we don't have an Eddie.
Robert, did we just lose you? Okay.
No, I'm still here. I just made a bad joke, and we wished for dead air.
Fantastic. No, what I was saying was, and I guess we can, unless you want to go in chronological order.
We can start with Beauty and the Beast and then move into chronological order, I guess, just because that's where we'll go with the flow here. We're starting with Beauty and the Beast. Only animated feature ever nominated for Best Picture, which is a crying shame because I thought Toy Story 3 should have won the year it was. Beauty and the Beast also had the unfortunate task of being up against one of my all-time favorite movies, a vastly different film, but The Silence of the Lambs. So, nice that you got. Thanks for coming.
Couple of things about Beauty and the Beast. One, as I was saying, there's a line in your opening song there at the very end of the song when you're evil, and it says something about nobody loves you when you're evil, and I don't think that's true. And so what I was saying to your audience of tens of thousands of hundreds of millions that listen to the podcast is that clearly Gaston was evil. He was the villain in Beauty and the Beast, but his little henchman dude, whose name I do not recall, but looked very Disney. What was his name?
Le Fou, which is just French for the fool. Okay, it's actually French for the fools.
Well, Le Fou, absolutely in love with Gaston. I mean, that he wasn't just a henchman. He wished Gaston would do things to him in the night, and because this is a Disney movie, and that was France in some far back year, they couldn't really show you that. They alluded to it just enough, but I'm telling you, it's there. That man, and I don't know how blue you get on this show, but that guy wanted to get all Richard Nixon in Gaston's crotch. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's some pretty heavy undertones as far as those two go, but when talking specifically about Gaston, I think one of the great things that stands out, to me at least, is just as him being a bad guy, is he transitions from being just kind of this arrogant douchebag, which is he is when you meet him, to, he kills the beast. He actually does kill him. He's revived courtesy of magic, but he actually manages to kill him. And he just morphs from this, somewhat buffoonish character into a legitimately menacing evil person. And it doesn't happen that often with Disney. Normally, you've got the bad guy is the bad guy is the bad guy. They don't change a whole lot. And for Gaston to just, morph so much over his screen time is really nice for me. I really enjoy that aspect of his character.
Couple of things about Gaston not related to his possible sexuality. I noticed he was almost inconsequential to the plot of the film. This is a redemption story about the Beast, and it's a love story about Belle and the Beast, and he has almost no effect on how that whole story unravels. The father went into the woods and got lost. That's how he found Beast Castle. Belle went after him. Belle then sacrificed herself to save him. And while she was there, the two of them fell in love. And then when he thought she was kidnapped, he went back for her. And when she realized he was in danger, she went back to save him. And it isn't until the conclusion of Beauty and the Beast that Gaston has anything to do with this story. And his only purpose at the end is to basically, fall
into a deep hole.
I'm going to give him some credit here, and that is when he kills the Beast, Belle had already kind of come to this conclusion, but she hadn't vocalized it. She truly loved the Beast. And it was like, you never know what you've got until it's gone. Well, this is sort of the, and I'm even thinking of Sleeping Beauty, but you think they're dead and then they come back to life. I can't remember what story this is.
Snow White does that.
Okay, fine, Snow White. Sort of the reverse of that. She thinks he's dead, and she was like, oh, my God, I love you, and I'm sorry, and then magic, and then they're reunited, and she is now one of the Disney princesses.
And they have, 3 or 4 sequels. Because, hey, why not? They've got a few. They have a few. All of which have this odd habit of turning him back into the Beast, because that's what's marketable.
Real quick on that. My daughter loves the House of Mouse series, so when Halloween... the villains all take over, and it's Disney's House of Villains instead of House of Mouse. Now we're into the Christmas time, right? So we're watching the House of Mouse Christmas snowed in at the House of Mouse. And yeah, every time you see Belle, there's the Beast. It's like, well, wait a minute. Did you revert? Are you an X-Man? What's going on here?
There are severely unanswered questions about about his potential lycanthropy.
I assume that the people behind Disney just say his natural state is to actually be a beast, and that the prince that he reverts into in Beauty and the Beast is actually just Fabio, and it's and it's an act, but he's really still a beast. It never changed.
Or just everything involving Belle and the Beast that we see after the movie takes place at some point between her volunteering to stay there and his redemption. So.
Hey, that's also a good theory, considering you've got other villains who happen to be there who are in fact alive when they died in their own.
Oh yeah. I have to imagine that the House of Mouse is like this. I don't know how many Dota or League of Legends players listen to this. That's got to be like the tavern where you just sit and wait for your respawn timer to tick down, and you just get to. I suppose the same thing works with FPSs if you're big into that. But you get shot. Oh, I got 30 minutes to kill for my timer. Okay, I'll just hang out here and have a drink and listen to Donald Duck try to recite Shakespeare. I don't know, whatever they do.
They play old cartoons. That's what they do, and some new ones.
Old cartoons are awesome. But yeah, so just specifically about Gaston, I tend to enjoy him. And part of that is, like you said, he's kind of inconsequential to the plot, which means he just kind of gets to ham things up as a character, at least, as opposed to how he's written. And he's kind of a fun, and you and I mentioned this when you were watching Beauty and the Beast, and that his song is so ludicrously awesome.
First of all, other than Savages from Pocahontas, it's my favorite of the entire Renaissance.
Okay.
I'm sorry. No one persecutes crackpots like Gaston is the funniest thing I've ever heard.
No one messes with harmless old crackpots like Gaston does.
Hang on.
No one has a swell cleft in his chin.
No.
Uriah Faber took it a bit too far.
No one's slick as Gaston, no one's quick as Gaston, no one's neck is incredibly thick as Gaston. This is so gay. For there's no man in town half as manly, perfect and pure paragon. You can ask any Tom, Dick, or Stanley, and they'll tell you whose team they prefer to be on. No one's bitten
further
like
gay.
Gaston.
Further gay references.
I'm laden with them. No one's been like Gaston, a kingpin like Gaston. No one's got a swell cleft in his chin like Gaston other than Uriah Faber. Yes, a specimen. Yes, I'm intimidating. What a guy, that Gaston.
Yeah,
he's grabbing his balls.
To any of my, I don't know if anyone who listens to this plays the War Machine game, tabletop game with figurines and whatnot. But apparently a friend of my brother's big, he enjoys the game a lot, and some friends at his place of business. There's a warcaster who's named Gaston, and apparently all this caster is good for is one big spell, and then all you have to do is re-up it every couple of rounds or what have you. So the caster gets in range, casts it, runs away to the back, and then just maintains it, and then just maintenance up, keeps it every round or so. And someone in that store apparently reworked a bit of the line so that no one runs away and I wish I remembered the line specifically because it was awesome. But anytime you see a character named Gaston, you have to be able to rework something about what that other character does into the lyrics of that song, into that melody.
So other than the crackpots line, in a wrestling match, no one bites like Gaston is hilarious.
He's a cheater. But
can we talk about the Bimbettes for a moment?
Please, if you feel so inclined.
Well, I feel like this is a huge lie. Okay? I feel like Beauty and the Beast assumes its audience, at least momentarily, are a bunch of idiots. So, the ideal beauty in the Euro-American culture is Barbie, right?
The Anglo-Saxon, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, huge boobs, blonde hair, legs that go all the way up to their hips. You know what I mean? Yes. That is the beauty. So here you have Gaston, right? Who can have any woman in town, and they demonstrate that by having these three buxom blondes that are just falling out of their tops for a children's program, mind you.
Who are following him around, throwing themselves at him with a catapult.
Yes. I mean, like, he could have had them right there in the middle of the street, but it wasn't that kind of a movie, you see? But he goes,
wants
no.
Belle for some reason.
And he wants, like, the homely chick who's reading a book, who has no interest in him. And I'm like,
Well, I suppose it's the, you want what you can't have, forbidden fruit tastes sweeter and whatnot, but you're kind of right about that. It's just, which was my primary thought watching. Is like, okay, she said no. Get your head out of your ass, and you have like three other women who are perfectly that we see. I mean, if you look at the average population of that town, you extrapolate to 1 equals a billion. If you're what's that line from Family Guy? We received 20 complaints about this indecent incident for the God.
I know what you're referencing. I don't know the line.
We received 20 complaints about the. I know the line. I can't remember the agent.
Oh, the FCC.
Thank you, the FCC. Yeah, we got 20 complaints about the David Hyde Pierce incident. As we all know, each complaint equals a billion people, so 20 billion people were offended by this.
Even with your hampered delivery, I still laughed at that.
It's one of the few funny Family Guy bits.
It really is. No, there's lots. But yeah, I think this is sort of the last thing I have to say about Gaston, other than he's a rapist. Jeff.
Yeah. For as much as a kids movie in a Disney movie, I would say that they tend to equate marriage with sex in the sense that okay, you get married or love is expressed. A kiss is all you need to express true love. You never mind that that's a bond forged over time and deep interpersonal connections. And no, kiss. That forcing someone to marry you is about as close as you'll get in a Disney movie to rape, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what he tries to force this poor girl to. And let's also be clear, he only wants to marry her so he can have sex.
Yeah,
the concept of spousal rape is a relatively new one, much less France in the 1300s.
And that's what killed me about this was it wasn't like Belle is this really great human being. She's good to her father. She's so smart. This isn't Sheldon and Amy from The Big Bang Theory who are together because they're the two smartest people in the universe. He was only interested in her body, which brings me to the Bimbettes. Why is he not going? There should not have been a Beauty and the Beast. The Beauty and the Beast should not have had a villain in it. It should have just been Belle and the Beast, and that's it, and no Gaston. Because the first time he walks up to Belle and says, "Belle, I am in love with you. Let me take this book and throw it in the mud. Come join me in my hunting lodge and serve me beer and rub my feet and be my wife because I'm only interested in your boobs." And she says no. He should have been like, "Fuck you, bitch," and then walk over to the Bimbettes. I didn't like you anyhow.
You're aware that he probably already had all of the bimbats and decided that, they weren't. Maybe their personalities are just so grating that he can't stand them, which...
Do you really think Gaston's that deep?
No. Okay, anybody around a grating enough personality over a long enough period of time, I don't know. But you're right. I mean, for some reason, his ego just cannot handle the fact that this woman said no.
Yeah, and so he has to concoct these machinations in order to make it happen. I mean, you're right. He does go insane with each progressive moment in that movie.
And to be fair, Belle's not even insulting towards him when she kind of blows him off. She tries to let him down gently. I mean, I think the last thing she says before she throws him out, gets him to fall out the door is, I just don't deserve you. And bullshit, but I get that you're trying to service the guy's ego a little bit here so that he doesn't turn into a lunatic, which he does anyway.
Well, that's the other thing about it, and I'm assuming you're going to want to move on shortly after this because we're going to let ground to cover, is that considering all that he's trying to do, I'm assuming in the back of her head, she's a smart gal, so I'm assuming in the back of her head she's thinking something along the lines of, if I don't let him down easy, he's going to murder me in my kitchen. Probably.
Which is not outside the realm of possibility for that character.
My head will be, they will put antlers in my ears and mount me on his wall.
Because he uses antlers in all of his decorating.
That's right, it's in the song. You want me to keep singing? No, you don't. No, let's move on.
All right. Just to get towards, again, chronologically speaking, the first one that started the Disney Renaissance is The Little Mermaid, which, if you're not historically aware of how important that film was to the studio and to the history of traditional animation in the realm of Disney Studios, it saved it. I mean, the two that came before that, one of my personal favorites and one that I just despise a great deal for various reasons, but immediately before that, I think you had The Great Mouse Detective, and then you had The Black Cauldron before that. And bear in mind that The Black Cauldron lost at the box office to The Care Bears. I kid you not.
Care Bears stare.
That movie did better at the box office than The Black Cauldron, but The Little Mermaid was the movie that kind of pulled Disney's animated studios fat out of the fire. And you have these are not original Disney stories. They don't tell original point in time. They interpret other stories. And you have a pretty good one in The Little Mermaid. But
it's one of my daughter's favorites.
But since we're talking about the bad guys here, there's two kind of. You have King Triton, who's a racist. I mean, seriously, he hates granted it's the human race instead of, skin color, but it's still a race. I suppose xenophobic might be a more accurate term. And then you have Ursula, who desires to unseat the king and become queen of the sea and wreck the planet and whatever other hoo-ha half-octopus lady feels like doing.
She has one of the best songs. Not as good as Gaston, but, her delivery of, all these poor unfortunate souls, they come to me for help, and I help them. Yes, I do. Awesome.
It is. I just rewatched that song. It's on that, again, on YouTube, where you can find stuff like that. And that whole song is sold by her delivery and what the animators do with it after it's been sung, obviously. And it's a really awesome song that she has, and she also has one of the best deaths. I mean, the prince steers a ship into her, and its broken prow it runs her through. I mean, as far as death sequences go, which is an important component of being a villain, if you're going to be there and you're going to die, you have to have a good death.
Not
He's got a
Gaston.
pretty good one.
Gaston's death is terrible.
No, he falls.
Yes.
He
kills. It's like he kills the beast, and then in a moment of being really satisfied with his own work, he just goes, "Ha ha! Oh no! I've fallen victim to gravity."
it's gravity. What's that?
Exactly. A crazy guy underneath the tree with the fucking apple. I don't understand.
Or I just had a brief flashback to King Arthur, to the Sword in the Stone, when Merlin's trying to explain gravity to Arthur.
But
gravity, what's that?
I'll tell you, first, as I said, my daughter, who is almost 3, she'll be 3 in January, loves The Little Mermaid. When asked what does she want for Christmas, she said to Santa, "I want a Barbie mermaid." And that's partially because she likes Barbie, partially because she likes The Little Mermaid, and God bless her, she put the two of them together in Barbie Mermaid. And in case you're wondering, they do exist. There's an entire film series based on Barbie as a mermaid. So it's not like he just made that
there's a live-action movie, too. I want to say it was called Aquamarine or some such nonsense.
I thought you were going to say it was called Splash.
No. I'm being semi-serious about that. They're actually, I don't know, it's horrible.
Anywho, Daryl Hannah sitting on the floor in a fancy restaurant with a fishtail eating lobster. Hilarious. In any case, Tom Hanks' best picture. So, yeah, Ursula, right? This whole movie, part of the reason why it works so well is they went back to what works. If you look at the films that we talked about in the Golden Age,
Oliver and Company came out immediately before The Little Mermaid, which again, another kind of failure. Disney doesn't adapt foodie stuff very well.
Well, here's what I was going to tell you, and something I was talking about with my wife, because we talked about this podcast and how much fun I had on it and everything, and how I've never thought of myself much of a Disney person, but because we've been going so much, and because I have a kid, I'm really invested in this now. And I'm really interested in talking about this, and I've studied kind of the history of Disney animation and marketing. And here's what Disney does very, very well. And when they do it, they're successful. When they stray from it, they crash like nobody's business. Disney markets to girls very well, and anything they do that has the words princess or fairy in it, and now pirates, I'll throw in there as well. If they can it's basically a fantasy ideal. If they can base something around that they do really, really well. So when they decided that the princesses were going to be an entire, marketing genre in and of itself, and they and they would focus their movies on getting more princesses into the pantheon of princesses, then you market that to the girls, and the girls love it. And then you're saying, well, what about the boys, right? This is where they've struggled. Disney really struggles with speaking to boys. So it's starting to get better now with pirates. And they figured out that boys like pirates, and they've got the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Now they got Jake and the Neverland Pirates. They got Peter Pan and Captain Hook, which somewhat falls into that. And they're going to be developing more things, as the years come out that are pirate central, so that they have boys and girls. But even with the girls, if you don't want to be a princess, now you can be a fairy, right? Tinkerbell has her own universe of stuff and her own little marketing genre. So, getting back to
4 movies?
Yeah, and a 5th one on the way called The Pirate Fairy, as we talked about last time.
Hey.
Yeah, exactly.
Combined genres. This'll work.
Let's see if we can get the boys to watch this one. So getting back to the Renaissance, so after all of these pictures that strayed away from what they did best, which was princess shit, fairy tale stuff, that has to do with the true love, the girl meets the boy of her dreams, the prince, they go right back to it with The Little Mermaid. Doesn't matter how...
I'm looking at the list, and from Robin Hood to Little Mermaid, you don't have that basic story told. I mean, objectively speaking, you have some good stuff, but... The Rescuers doesn't fall into that category. Fox and the Hound certainly doesn't fall into that category. Black Calder. Again, one of my favorites is Great Mouse Detective, and as I mentioned last week, a lot of that has to do with Vincent Price being awesome as a rat version of Professor Moriarty. But there's not a lot of, again, fairy tale or true love or any of that for several years. I mean, wow, that's almost a decade.
So if you look at what the Renaissance captures, it goes from the Little Mermaid to Tarzan, right?
Give or take.
And skipping the Rescuers Down Under, we're not going to count that one.
But I like McLeach.
Well, you could talk about him. I'm just saying. Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid was a princess story and was wildly successful. And to this day, my kid was born only a few years ago and is just as into The Little Mermaid as girls were back when the damn movie came out. Beauty and the Beast, princess story. Aladdin focuses on the boy, but has a princess in it, and it's. I'm looking at Rotten Tomatoes, the average review for these movies. It's got the highest aggregate score, 94%. Now, some of that I think has to do with Robin Williams, but I digress. The Lion King, that one speaks to boys. So it was successful, and it's like that's like the only way they can capture interest in boys is
animals.
do this animals. Yeah, that's it. So animals and cars. And then Pocahontas, princess story, not as successful as the rest of them for a variety of reasons, but still
they weren't blue.
Yeah,
running gag.
There.
When I rewatched that, the running gag at my house has been, one of my brothers does not care for Avatar, so whenever I say anything negative about Pocahontas, like, oh, it worked so great for James Cameron. Wonder why it didn't work for them.
And then you have the Hunchback of Notre Dame, which had no business being a Disney film. So not very popular. Doesn't have a princess in it. Hercules spoke to boys. Similar problem. Mulan, we're back to girls again, but it's sort of a boy's story. And Tarzan was about skateboarding. So,
and Phil Collins.
And Phil Collins. So what have we learned here? That Disney does its best stuff when they're focusing on princesses and marketing to girls than when they try to do anything else.
And if you'll notice, there's a lot of dark time from, if you count Tarzan as the start of the second or third dark age, there's a long time before they hit it right again as far as that goes. I mean, there's some stinkers in that list, and then Princess and the Frog, and then Tangled, and we're back on top.
And doesn't that make my point for me? That there's darkness until The Princess and the Frog, which was a goddamn princess movie. And
pretty much, yeah. The only thing in there that I enjoyed is I kind of enjoyed Meet the Robinsons, and that's because you made me rewatch it in preparation for this because you want to talk about 1920s guy with the bowler hat.
Yeah, that's one of my wife's favorite animated movies, and she made me watch it, and I actually teared up at the end because I'm apparently a huge homosexual. So, but I love Meet the Robinsons. I think it's a great movie, and it's not something that I actively sought after to watch, but they play it on Disney Junior a lot. All right, back to Ursula. So Ursula's a great villain. Ursula is just bigger than life, and here's the thing. And as Robert says on any one of these shows, the thing that makes the picture, the thing that makes the story, is having a villain who isn't a complete moron. Clear, decisive goal, right? She wants to rule the underwater kingdom. She's a manipulator. She's a trickster. She's a snake oil salesman, right? So she's already an interesting villain-type character. And she sees an opportunity to manipulate this moron girl who's love-struck with the human, and she takes advantage of it, which then leads to one of the greatest songs ever written, in Poor Unfortunate Souls. And when her plan starts to unravel because apparently Ariel is
able to use her lines in that about, oh, men don't like women who talk, and you've got your body and your face, and you've got body line. Seriously, that's what she says in the song, people.
Yes, she's like, you've got your good looks, you'll be fine.
And when that actually starts working, oh crap.
Right. So she's got a quick I gotta go mess with this. She isn't just sitting there letting things fall out of control or sending henchmen to do her dirty work. She goes bibbidi bobbidi boo, and she turns into a chick herself, and then she puts a spell on Eric, and she tries to fuck up the romance. It's great. She's a very active villain. Yeah.
Her plan succeeds. She gets control of the underwater kingdom because King Triton doesn't want his daughter to be one of those little whatever they are that she turns things into when you owe her.
I thought it was sad sperm.
It looks kind of like that. I'm assuming there's an actual thing they were...
Sure.
And she then gets his spear and the helm and the crown, and she's ruling. She causes a big whirlwind, and Eric drives a boat through her, which is how he finally kills her.
Yeah, I don't understand how... I mean, it was like a throwback to Sleeping Beauty, Maleficent turns into a big-ass dragon, nearly kills Philip, and then Philip, is damn lucky the fairies are there because otherwise he's a dead man.
He was hosed.
Yeah,
he had a chance.
His back was against the cliff. The ground is all on fire. There was nowhere for him to go. And unless the fairy, enchants the sword that he then throws at the dragon, forget about it. He's dead, man.
The sword if you're going to throw it because they are not balanced for that.
No, it is not a throwing sword, as I've learned at many a Renaissance fair. So it's the same thing here. She's just like, I'm a giant fucking sea monster now, and I'm going to cause waves and kill people, and I've been stabbed.
Yeah, you're right. For me, a villain, like you said, they can't be stupid. I mean, which was a great pitfall from Captain Hook and several others along the line. Mm-hmm. If you're a buffoon and you have no chance of succeeding, you pose no threat. And if you pose no threat, there's no tension. If there's no tension, no one cares.
Right.
And if no one cares, you just kind of fade away into obscurity, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is kind of the problem we're going to get into with Governor
Ratcliffe.
Governor Ratcliffe, from Pocahontas, but I don't want to skip ahead here.
Yeah, and I mentioned briefly I wanted to... Okay, Rescuers Down Under, sequel to The Rescuers, which we skipped last week for time reasons and whatnot. But if I could briefly go back to that, Madame Medusa, who is the villain, and she has a couple of pet alligators and a doofus sidekick, which is about par for the course for your average Disney villain. You have a doofus sidekick and a couple of animals that do your bidding. She is... Some of her lines to Penny, the little girl, are just like the most... I mean, they're delivered but they're just some of the most insulting little things that you'll ever hear.
Isn't this a lot like the mom from Tangled, where they're like a backhanded compliments?
Worse.
Okay.
Much worse. I mean, what I think of is she has basically kind of kidnapped this little girl to do mining work because she wants to find a giant diamond, and she's too fat or what. She's actually not a fat person, but apparently a teenager, a legitimate teenager, could not fit into this hole to go find it.
So this is kind of like she needs an Asian in order to rob a casino?
Yes, that kind of thing. Or you need a Jew to handle your money. I don't know. I mean...
Hey, I resemble that remark.
I mean, and the little girl, Penny, goes to this woman and says, okay, if I find it, can you take me back to the orphanage so I can get adopted? And she laughs. Oh, adopted. Who would ever want to adopt a homely little girl like you?
I'd like to help you, but you're terrible.
Horrible stuff. And in Rescuers Down Under does stream on Netflix, and I rewatched it, and honestly, if I hadn't seen it in theaters when it came out, I would have thought it was shot for 3D. It's not. They just do a lot of fun with that big scope and things coming at you, and John Candy does does Wilbur, who's the albatross who flies them places. But just very briefly, I want to talk about, again, a villain who might succeed. You have Percival C. McLeach, who tries to feed the little boy to crocodiles. I kid you not. And he's a poacher. And hunters get a bad rap in Disney, so, okay, he's a poacher. So not only is he killing cute things, he's doing it illegally, so we won't rankle any feathers. And he wants to kidnap this great golden eagle, which is so enormous you can fit an 8-year-old on it, and it will fly happily. And he wants to catch it because it's a rare bird. I mean, and he's a poacher. He wants it because, again, rare bird. He actually does catch it. And to get rid of... And the boy is the only evidence left that he has done this illegally and whatnot. So his plan is to feed him to a bunch of crocodiles, because he convinces everyone else that in the beginning, when he realizes that this boy who has saved this eagle's life and is therefore soul bonded with it somehow, I don't know. Seriously, it saves the eagle from a poacher's trap. The kid does. The eagle then makes it godfather to the 3 eggs. I don't understand it, but there it is. So he kidnaps this boy, and to convince people, to keep people from looking for him, he throws his knapsack into this, call it Crocodile Falls. It's big waterfall full of crocodiles all over the place. So he leaves evidence that the boy has been eaten by crocodiles. And then at the end, after he has let the boy lead him to the eagle and he has caught it, and I have to get rid of the evidence, well, I already made them think he was eaten by crocodiles. I don't want to be a liar as well as a poacher and a murderer. And he goes and he almost does it, too. He tries to feed this poor kid to the crocodile. And again, the voice work in that of George C. Scott, great actor in general. His voice work in that is phenomenal for my money. And again, I just have... that was one of the first movies I recall seeing in theater, and so I have some very fond memories attached with it. But we're going to move on, because that's what we do here, and I don't think Mark has seen that one. But after Rescuers Down Under, there's Beauty and the Beast, and then we get Aladdin.
Oh, yeah.
Funny note, and I have not been able to confirm this through extensive research, the character of Jafar, first of all, I want to talk about him as a character in a bit because I think he's awesome, was voiced by Jonathan Freeman, who does a lot of voice acting. He was originally supposed to be voiced by Sir Patrick Stewart. I kid you not, that for what I've been able to turn up, Patrick Stewart was originally supposed to do the voice of Jafar. And I now wonder, man, it would have been so much better hearing Captain Picard put Robin Williams in his place than...
So with Jafar, we're back to basics again, because I can't speak intelligently to Rescuers Down Under. It's been several years since I've watched it, and I was not able to rewatch it in preparation for this podcast. So, Beauty and the Beast, we already talked about Gaston and how he's sort of inconsequential to the plot. With Aladdin, we're back to the Ursula kind of villain, where you've got a guy with a plan, very resentful of his position in the palace. He feels like, he's the Sheldon Cooper of this universe. He's
Why
the
do you
smartest.
keep referencing Big Bang Theory?
The more people tell me they hate the show, the more I'm bringing it up.
Fair enough.
So, Jafar is the smartest guy in the room. Hey, I can bring up somebody else. It's actually Disney related if you want. Have you ever watched Sofia the First?
Have not.
All right. So, quick sidetrack, okay? So since you don't like the Big Bang Theory, I'm gonna introduce another Disney villain into this conversation.
I've seen enough of the show to know what you're talking about. But
okay. So for those of you who don't have kids and don't know what the fuck a Sofia the First is,
Big Bang.
Oh, well, nope. Now you got me on Sofia the First. Good job. So Sofia the First is a new 30-minute show on Disney Junior. And it's about a village girl whose mother marries the king, and she moves from the village into the palace, and she has to learn to be a princess. And she's got she's got a stepsister and a stepbrother who are the princess and prince of this kingdom, Enchantia, as it's called. And the princess is a real snob, and she bonds with Sofia over time, but in the beginning she's very cold to her, and James accepts her immediately. So it's about
boys do.
Yes, it's about the trials and tribulations of a village girl learning to be a princess. And there's the villain in the show is the palace magician Cedric, and Cedric has been Sofia is given an amulet, a purple amulet that allows her to talk to animals. It also will call out other Disney princesses whenever she's in. It's the Matrix of leadership from Transformers, okay?
Which was not necessary to revive Optimus Prime, apparently.
No.
Michael Bay.
So the Matrix of leadership, in her darkest hour, she can call on a Disney princess to help her. In the very first episode, Cinderella shows up. In the most recent one, where they go visit the underwater kingdom of mermaids, Ariel shows up, and occasionally other princesses will show up throughout the show. Cedric has been trying to get this amulet the entire series. Okay, we're about a dozen or so episodes into this thing, and every episode that he's in, and he's in quite a number of them, he's trying to get this goddamn amulet. And nobody, and here's the thing, he's very bitter about being the palace magician because nobody takes him seriously. They all think he's a goof. He's just like, oh, Cedric, your father was a better magician than you are. And he hates it. And he's just like, he wants this amulet so that he can rule the kingdom and stop being essentially picked on. Why the family has not thrown him in the fucking dungeon yet, I have no idea. Considering he's shown himself to be a crook on a number of occasions. Like, these are the most blind people I've ever seen on any show. I have complained many times about this to my daughter and my wife, and both people have told me to shut up. Trying to watch the show. But, so Cedric just absolutely driven by his animosity towards this kingdom. And that's what's going on here with Jafar. Jafar is this really powerful sorcerer who isn't being used to his full potential, and the king is kind of a doofus. And so
a little.
And so
I'm an excellent judge of character.
Yeah, well, again, you've got the king in Aladdin, you've got the king of Enchantia. Why the fuck can't you see the writing on the wall with these people? First of all, if they look like a villain, they are a villain. Let's just go with that. Cedric might have...
That's one of the things I wanted to talk about Jafar is we actually are introduced to him before we know who he is or what he does. We get the opening sequence where he has acquired half of the beetle that will fly and lead him to the Cave of Wonders. He gets the other half. He discovers he needs Aladdin. He then is absent until after we meet Aladdin and we meet Jasmine. We meet everyone, and then he comes back and, oh, you're actually the royal vizier, which is a very, actually kind of important position, and, oh, we could be in trouble. He's also, the only purely duplicitous character. He has no, actual power or abilities. He's just smart, and he's sneaky and two-faced and underhanded.
I thought he was a sorcerer. It's been a while since I've watched the movie, but I thought he could actually do magic.
Not in the beginning, no.
Okay.
I mean, like, a little bit he can mess with some stuff, but not real. I mean, he discovers who the diamond in the rough is after he steals the ring from the Sultan. He has a scepter that he can hypnotize people with, but it's kind of weak hypnosis.
Okay, so he's more Iron Man than he is Superman.
Yeah. He gets the ability to do magic with his second wish.
Gotcha. So, and that's the thing. He wants the lamp because he wants to prove to the world his mettle that that Jafar really should have been running this kingdom all along. And he'd like to take Jasmine as a sort of a consolation prize and all of that. But really, this is all about
the killer.
Well, there you go.
One of my favorite things about him, first of all, I mean, again, he's a very subversive character. I mean, a lot of the others are kind of blatant with their evil. He has to be really subversive because he has no real authority or real power. So when
the hostile takeover.
Yeah, and after he loses the lamp, he dresses up like an old man, gets Aladdin to the Cave of Wonders, fails to get the lamp. He's sitting there with Iago, and God bless Gilbert Gottfried's best performance is Iago the parrot.
Yes. And in the sequel, The Return of Jafar, his Looking Out for Me song is spectacular.
Yes.
That's it, I've had it, I'm looking out for me.
Yes, it is. And he's sitting on the throne, which, again, not his throne, but he's sitting there, lamenting the fact that he lost the lamp. And Iago the parrot comes up to him and kind of goes, this isn't the end of the world. We can work something out here. We just got to figure it out. And they come up with the plan, okay, Jasmine refuses to marry a prince. So what if we come up with some legalese bullshit about how you can marry the princess? Then after you're married, we'll kill them and you'll be in charge.
I vaguely remember that.
And that's his plan. That is his plan until he realizes that Prince Ali is actually Aladdin, and he can steal the lamp back. But he has a plan B, and he goes with it. And he's actually, for as much as you get some funny moments out of Jafar, but he's never a joke. And at the end, when he turns himself into a giant snake and tries to eat Aladdin. Well,
that's the whole thing. He's undone by his own ego. Aladdin is able to manipulate him into wishing to be a genie.
Same way he tricked the genie into getting him out of the cave.
Right. No, it's the whole thing. I go back to Ursula. The reason why Ursula works as a villain is because she is a menacing threat right up until the point she's stabbed. Maleficent was a menacing threat right up until the point she's defeated. Jafar was a menacing threat right up to the point that he's defeated. These are, as you said, the exact opposite of like a Captain Hook character who's fucking Wile E. Coyote, basically. He can't get a win, even if Vince Russo was booking him. These are what makes these
Jeff
films.
Jeff Jarrett would not lay down for Captain Hook.
No, exactly. And that's why, my daughter watches Peter Pan on almost a daily basis, and it's a little hard for me to sit down and watch it with her, just because, I just look at Captain Hook, I'm like, you're not even close to a threat. This is essentially like a tour through Neverland with the occasional run-in with Captain Hook, who's more of a nuisance than anything else. Where these movies, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, to a lesser extent Pocahontas, you've got some real threats going on here, and you've got a hero's arc where people actually have to grow and figure things out and rise to meet the occasion.
Yeah. And that actually kind of dovetails nicely into, speaking of threats, my favorite Disney villain, hands down, any day, twice on Sundays, you ask me, it's Scar from The Lion King. And part of the reason I think, well, first of all, I love his song. I think, for the longest time, I felt Be Prepared was just the most awesome Disney song ever. And as I grow, it's because I realize I'm kind of drawn to, dark, lower toned music and certain rhythmic qualities that this kind of falls into. But that was, my favorite song. And everyone, again, I was the target audience when The Lion King came out. I saw it in theater. Everyone else I knew loved Simba. I thought Scar. And here's a guy who, and his menace is established at the end of the first act when he wins. His evil plan succeeds. He kills Mufasa, drives off Simba, he becomes king. It's such a rarity. I'll just go in film in general, and I brought this up when I had Pat Mullen on here and we talked about James Bond villains, because I looked up the list and whoever put them up on, I think it was on Wikipedia at the time, but I was looking through the list, it's like, okay, here's the villain, here's the film, here's their plot, and then at the end, did they succeed? No. All the way until you get to Javier Bardem as Raul Silva. Yes, he killed him. He succeeded. When a villain actually succeeds in their evil plot, it's it doesn't happen all that often. And when it does, it's a huge deal. And Scar won. He killed Mufasa. The big lion got run over by the wildebeest. He got to run the kingdom into the ground. And
see, that's my major flaw with Scar. Because I think everything you're saying is absolutely true. Now, granted, it's been a while since I've seen The Lion King. I've seen the Confused Matthew review of The Lion King more than I've seen The Lion King, which is hysterical, by the way. But here's my problem, and since you're the Lion King expert, this is your movie, this is your Star Wars. Maybe you can sort of. I'm gonna switch chairs on you, and I'm gonna ask you questions, and you try to figure this out for me. Why does it every villain who takes over has to reduce their kingdom to ashes?
I don't know why specifically. I think in the case of Scar, his evil plan involved shock troops that were hyenas who are gluttonous and have no sense of anything.
But that's the thing, he saw it coming. It's not like by the end of it he was undone by the hyenas. He was approving of their behavior.
Well, then he was undone by the hyenas. They're the ones who eat him.
Okay, I forgot about that. But no, my point is, okay, I want to be. Look, his whole thing is not I hate lions, right? He's not an elephant.
He just wants to be king.
Right, he wants. Okay, so follow me with this, and then I swear to God I'll shut up. He wants to be the king of the lions, right? Because he thinks Mufasa sucks, and I would be a better king. So Jafar and Ursula, right? I'm so smart, I want to be in charge because you all are a bunch of retards. See, he's Cedric. Notice how I didn't say Sheldon that time. So there you have his whole thing, right? That's his agenda, and you're right, he wins. So why is it now that he's so smart, he's going to be such a better king than Mufasa? Then you see him as king, and it's and the lions are just kind of looking at him yeah, we're all starving, and you've killed the Pride Lands, and this is terrible. The website doesn't work. No one can sign up for health care. Unemployment's falling. You know what I mean? We got problems here. You have not brought the hope and change that you campaigned on, Scar.
And his response is, "I'm king. I can do whatever I want."
Which I believe exactly.
To further that parallel,
look what he says is talk to Catherine Sebelius. You'll be fine. But here's the thing: isn't it a much stronger story if he's actually I tried? I tried to fix it, and the hyenas did me in.
Well, they kind of do in the sense that he promised them the Pride Lands in return for their support, and hyenas suck. They, suck the life out of the entire, wherever they are in Africa. The hyenas suck the life out of it. We want to keep them in their little dark corner where they can feed on scraps and whatnot.
Right.
And, plus that, for as much, I feel like the point the movie tries to make is Scar has not had any personal growth. He's just grown up bitter and angry, and his entire life is I want to be king. Congratulations, you're king. Now what? Oh, never thought I'd actually get here.
So that's the thing. He should have been welcoming Simba back and Simba, bad things have happened here. You and I need to bond together to take back the Pride Lands, and it could have been a redemption story. It's no, he's still fucking Boris Badenoff, and he's I still want to be king. Yes, you've destroyed everything, and
he was prepared to order everyone to stay there, no matter herds aren't coming, water's dead, vegetation gone. Nope, we're still staying here. You're all going to die with me because I am your king.
Right. At this point, he's appointed a horse to the Senate, and the kingdom's falling apart. And then the other lions of the world's stupidest people on the face of the earth is they're all going to go with.
Yeah, we can't. Wait a minute here. I didn't vote for you. You don't vote for kings. I know he's your favorite, and I think as a character, as a performance, I don't have any issue with that. I think he's performed well. I think there's a problem in the writing. The other issue with that is that story is basically a very, very dumbed-down version of Hamlet.
Right.
And so you have to keep the evil king being evil but they don't give a very good reason as to why he's a bad person, but they don't try to go into too much more about other than he's just kind of the bad guy. And again, the performance is wonderful. Jeremy Irons is awesome, almost universal. Again, Scar is my personal favorite, but are there objectively speaking, are there some issues with how it's presented and whatnot? Yeah, I mean, there's problems with just about every movie.
I just needed to focus on that because because again, Ursula was pitch perfect. She's not successful long enough.
Successful.
Yeah,
and
I was gonna say she's not successful long enough to get into this whole thing where she fucks up the kingdom, and why is anyone listening to her at this point? Same thing with Jafar. The moment he wins, he loses. Gaston. The moment he wins, he falls off a fucking building.
Yeah.
So, this is the only one where, as you're right, it's a great twist on the plot where the villain wins in the first act of the movie. However, then you're left asking yourself, wait, why is anyone still listening to you? How have the lions not overthrown your reign by now? Or
only male lions can rule a pride, and there's no other male lions. He killed all of them except he thought Simba was dead.
I would see a much better story would have been like Simba comes back and he was like, "Please help me, brother. Help me, nephew. We must fix the Pride Lands. I'm a terrible king."
Well, okay, but then at that point, it's like, okay, maybe you almost have to forgive him for killing Mufasa.
Mm-hmm.
Which you can't do if you're an 8-year-old watcher. Like, no, you killed Mufasa. You must die.
Bullshit! Darth Vader choked every bitch out he ever came across, but still expected to buy that he can be redeemed.
Hey, I was perfect. I was happy with him being redeemed until Hayden Christensen became associated with Darth Vader, in which case, no.
That's all right. There's no reason to get into the prequel. My point is that here's a guy who blows up a planet, kills bitches dead, and by the third movie, we're expected to believe that he can be good again. If Darth Vader can be good again, why can't Scar? Why couldn't Scar be redeemed? Because
his character, the way he was, wouldn't allow him to be redeemed, I suppose is the best answer I can give you. The way the character is written, he's not supposed to be redeemed. And the story might suffer objectively a little bit for it, but that's the way his character is.
I can't. What am I supposed to do? Hold you responsible for the way Disney writes their films? So I'm good. Case dismissed.
I mean, again, objectively speaking, yeah, there might be some interest there. Or, I mean, if he was really the smartest guy in the room, Scar probably would have. Okay, here, you can be king. I screwed up. And then as soon as he figures out what he did wrong, he kills Simba and resumes ruling and drives the place back into the ground. But hey.
Well, I think a much better story is written where he tries to, because again, Simba's a dumbass, right? He's been running around. He's been running around with these two potheads, yelling. Whose song is, Hakuna, fuck it. We're just lazy. That's the song, right? So I mean, Simba should have come back and he would be like, my idiot nephew. Listen, I need you to kill the hyenas, right? See what they've done to the Pride Lands? I couldn't stop it. I'm sorry. It's an elephant graveyard out here, and you're the only hope these people have. And then you send Simba to go kill the hyenas, and he was like, I'm still king. Huh?
Yes. And if this were Game of Thrones, that's exactly what he would have done. But, and again, the other thing I want to bring up about Scar, and this is one that I don't know how you'll feel about my interpretation of this, but when he comes up after he has killed Mufasa, and there's poor Simba mourning the death of his father, and he comes up and he goes, well, you just killed the king.
Right.
Telling a small child that something horrible is their fault is just the lowest kind of that's the kind of shit pedophiles do.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's one of the reasons his character, not that this is going to sound odd, but it's for his character to do something that manipulative and that devious, it resonated. And again, it's one thing to kill people. It's another thing to emotionally manipulate everyone involved. And again,
hang on. Let me say something to this effect. Kids are egocentric. They are psychologically, it is developmentally appropriate for them to think they are the center of the universe. This is why when children of divorced parents struggle so much, because internally they believe they caused it. Now, obviously, that's seldom true. But no one ever thinks to sit down and talk to the kid, and pull the old Goodwill Hunting. It's not your fault kind of a thing. But if you don't do that, if you don't actively try to work with the kid and make them realize they are not actually the center of the universe, they are not the cause of all these problems, they'll go on believing that, and that leads to all kinds of dysfunction later on in life. So what's really powerful about that scene, to the point that you're making, is there you have Simba, who, if you follow psychological development in children, already believes he caused. And there's Scar, who's a trusted family member and his uncle.
His uncle.
And going, you are dead on, kid. You are absolutely right. You fucking caused this, you little devil, you. See, it's just like he's already there, and then Scar gives him that final push into the abyss.
And what are we going to tell your mother about how you killed your father?
Yeah, exactly. At that point, I'm sure Simba was just like, you know what? Just fucking kill me. I don't deserve to be alive.
At which point, his suggestion of run away becomes extraordinarily tempting. It makes all the sense in the world.
Scar's like, Simba, run away. He was like, that is a great idea. Wish I'd thought of it. I'm out of here.
And then he sends the hyenas after him.
Well, and then he meets up with the potheads, and they sing, Hakuna, fuck it,
Pretty much. And he learns to eat bugs.
Yeah. Like you do when you're smoking pot.
Yeah, if a bug is the worst thing you eat when you're high on pot, I assume that's a good day for you.
Well, no, see, you eat munchies when you smoke pot. Get it?
A little
bit.
But yeah, Lion King was, as you brought up, it's a departure. It's not exactly there's not a princess story, but a wildly successful film.
Yeah.
And sadly, what follows are a couple of films that are almost laughable.
I have been ready for this for the last week. Okay. I'm excited.
After The Lion King, which is, I feel we can safely say, it falls into the category of Disney classics. It's a great film. They decide to follow up The Lion King with Pocahontas.
Otherwise known as We Hate Whitey.
And they make a marginal effort to be at least somewhat historically accurate.
This is politically correct, the movie.
It's amazing that when I put this on Facebook after you mentioned that, hey, look, your comment was something to the effect of, here's a movie where the Native Americans are heroes and the white guys are the bad people and we wish them gone. No wonder white kids didn't flock to see them.
Yep.
And my immediate response is, but it has Christian Bale and Mel Gibson in it, which is actually true. Mel Gibson voices John Smith and Christian Bale voices Thomas, his pseudo sidekick.
All right, can I say something about this movie before we go any further?
By all means, go ahead.
All right. I understand that there are more than white people on this planet. And I understand that Disney wants to sell to more audiences than just white. So it would make sense when you consider that all the princesses up to this point are white chicks. This is like a fraternity of rich white gals up to this point, right? All the princesses. All the princesses.
They become rich by the end. So yeah, we have the privileged white kids.
Yeah, are all rich white kids, right? A lot of them are blonde. Cinderella's, I think, blonde. Aurora's blonde.
Blondish. Yeah, there's a lot of the stereotypes. Let's go with that.
So, I can understand...
The Anglo-Saxon ideal.
Right. So, I can understand why Disney would look around and go, you know what? Kids go to the movie. Okay. So, 10, 20 years later when they do The Princess and the Frog, they struck gold. Because that was a princess movie for black kids. And I'm now going to not be able to do the joke I was going to do with that. Hey, Robert, ask me why I like The Princess and the Frog.
Why do you like The Princess and the Frog?
Black folks. Anyway.
Keith David. That's your answer.
That's right. Folks, if you watched me if you've heard our podcast when we talked about The Wire, did the same exact joke. Because I'm not creative.
It's a running gag. That's our running gag, and it will be brought up again and again and again.
That's right. But getting back to this, it's like, all right, so we need to market to black kids too. Their families
need a little
have
color,
right?
We need something not white.
God, what movie was that, or what television show? You know why she got the job? We needed a little color. It was What's Happening. That was what it was. When the black chick from What's Happening gets the job in the swanky office, and they behind the scenes are like, "Why did you give her the job? She's not qualified." Because this place could use a little color. And then he's like the villain, right? So anyway, remember What's Happening with Rerun?
Never seen it.
That whole last bit then was gold, and it was lost on you, and I'm so sad.
Pat Mullen is cracking up wherever he is listening to this.
He's on a boxing cast with Gavin. In any case,
you listen to it after.
all right. So they look around and there's like black kids. All right, that's fine. There's black kids, and we need to market to them too. And we got Chinese Chinamen, right? We need to market to them too, right? So they exist. Hispanics, we need to market to them. So which movie should we do this? The fucking Native Americans, of which there are 12 in this country. Explain that to me, all right? Explain how the Disney...
I don't know. I have no idea how they arrived at that conclusion.
Looked at the demographics of this country and went, you know what market's not been tapped yet? Yes, blacks, Hispanics, and Asians, Native Americans. I'm telling you, the next fucking movie's going to be about us with this logic.
I need to find the H.P. Lovecraft quote about Eskimos for every time they get brought up, but...
But you see what I'm saying? Like, it was
I do.
dumb choice.
It was not the smartest strategic move, and it does mark kind of the decline in terms of marketability, if not quality, which is somewhat subjective, for a while. And again, you get some... Pocahontas is a fine movie. It looks pretty good. It's got some decent songs. You've got a decent voice cast. It's just like
a commercial for Greenpeace right in the middle of it.
There might have been.
I believe this was Pocahontas, as brought to you by the Sierra Club.
Yeah, but as far as marketing goes, and as far as its appeal, it just doesn't hit like any of the notes you really want a movie to hit.
Okay, there's not a single girl that dresses up as Pocahontas. Not one. There's not a girl. When you go into the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique and you go pick out your princess dress and your tiara and your shoes and everything, there isn't one going, does anyone have a burlap sack? I'd like to be Pocahontas.
It was deerskin.
I don't care. No one's doing it.
There's a substantial difference in terms of wearing it, but in terms of, I get your point.
It was such a dumb idea. I mean, and she's so like the welfare recipient of the Disney princess umbrella. It's like, well, yeah, she's technically a Disney princess, so we have to include her, but she's really like the ugly stepsister. You know, you've got like. It's like, we've got Cinderella, Aurora, Rapunzel, we've got Ariel, and and then there's this little voice off in the corner, barely audible, and Pocahontas. Shut up! No one cares.
Drink Duff responsibly.
At least Mulan had a sword.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm with you. There's a lot wrong with that movie as far as that goes, and it's topped off. Since we're talking about bad guys, and I feel the need to, we have to briefly talk about Governor Ratcliffe and his... he is as close to a buffoon as you get for a while in these movies.
Savages. That is the part of that entire movie.
It is. War song on each side, and it's pretty awesome, but the character of Ratcliffe, he loosely based on a couple of different historical figures. This is his last shot for glory. He goes to the New World. He comes back with gold, and he finds favor with the king, and he's like the laughingstock of the court. So this is his shot at giving all of them the finger. Of course, he happens to land in Virginia, where there is no such thing as gold, gems. You got coal. That's what you got in Virginia, folks.
Trees.
But again, he is not menacing in the sense that you think he's actually going to succeed or he's a threat. He's just... he's not actively a buffoon like Captain Hook, who is getting such a bad name from us.
I was going to say he's another one that's almost inconsequential to the plot. Really, Pocahontas has no plot.
It's just it's a highly sanitized version of the settlement of Jamestown, which conveniently overlooks Croatoan.
John Smith just walks off and falls in love with a not 13-year-old girl, and then they decide to. And then it's essentially Romeo and Juliet. John Smith and not the 13-year-old Pocahontas are essentially the Capulets, the
Montagues.
I was going to get there. The Capulets and the Montagues. It's, you are white and I am red, and why does the red man say how? Sorry, I got distracted. You are white and I am red, and we want to be together, but our families say that we can't, and and they don't necessarily commit suicide because it's not that kind of a movie, but it comes close,
It's a near thing.
And then the poor bastard gets shot and has to leave at the end. I'm like, this isn't a princess movie. This is depressing. But yeah, he's just like, he's basically Archie Bunker. That's his whole role in this thing. Fucking, I don't like the red man. And that's all he contributes to this movie.
Yeah,
it's like he's a worse villain to the white guys in this thing. He's like, you know, he's like a plantation only, you know, it's the wrong color slaves. He's just fucking find gold. Well, we've dug up most of Jamestown and we can't find anything. Fuck off. Dig up more things. He's like, oh, there happens to be Indians here. Well, fucking shoot them. That's what you do. That's it. That's his whole thing.
Yeah, he's, again, in the pantheon of villainy, he kind of sucks. I mean, there's a reason, and of course, he is also sandwiched between two of the best, which does him no services at all, because you mentioned at the opening, at the outset, Hunchback of Notre Dame is not really a kid's. It's not really a kid's story.
No.
Before they made the movie, I read a slightly abridged version of Hugo Weaving's Hunchback of Notre Dame. I heard they were making a Disney movie, and I went, wait, everyone dies. Which is what, if you haven't read the book, everyone dies. Captain Phoebus is an egocentric jackass. Frollo successfully hangs Esmeralda. Quasimodo lets Frollo fall to his death. Quasimodo then cuddles the corpse of Esmeralda until he dies from dehydration. And it's a horrifyingly depressing story.
So let's go back a step. What is the plot to The Hunchback of Notre Dame? You have religious persecution. You have racial persecution in that the gypsies are not a religion, so it would have to be racial, cultural maybe. And that's kind of it. You have this discussion of sin versus sanctity. You have all of these themes going on. You essentially you have a guy. You have the king priest of Istar. If you read the old Dragonlance books, right? It's like there must not be sin. And so he goes out to pursue the sinners, and of course it's racial, right? It's the Salem witch trials.
Gypsies are the sin. What? Good French people don't sin. It's got to be the gypsies' fault.
Well, right. This is the Salem witch trials, isn't it? It's the problems here are you people. Let's ignore the way this France is being run at this time. You people are the problem, and they'll do the same thing to the Jews later on in Europe. But let's focus on the gypsies right now. And so that's kind of the whole thing. Explain to me where in there is the children's story.
That's the thing. That what they did, and I mentioned earlier that Disney has a hard time adapting, adult stories or, kind of bleak stories, because Oliver and Company is just Oliver Twist, and their version is not a lot. And actually, if you ever read the original Rescuers book, their version is markedly different. And here you have what Disney did, they made the story about Quasimodo. And look, and we'll make him the kind of centerpiece in that he's the one you'll want to root for. And we can see that, you look beneath being skin deep, and oh wait, we need jokes. So here's Jason Alexander as a fat gargoyle. He's funny, right? It's
here's what I said on Facebook. It's not a bad movie. It's a bad children's. That is a great story, but they try to jam in there a love story between Esmeralda and Phoebus, and of course, Disney sort of ham-handed lesson. This unfortunately followed the same problem with Pocahontas, which is, you have Keenan Ivory Wayans who comes out every so often and yells message at you. And again, and I'm telling you right now, you have to know, little kids don't want to see that shit. They just want to be entertained. They're not really, you can get a message in there, but it can't be that obvious and it can't be that ham-handed. And so the problem here with The Hunchback of Notre Dame is it suffers from an identity crisis. It does not know what it wants to be. And you're right. Frollo is an awesome villain.
I just said, that Be Prepared was my favorite Disney song for a long time. It got surpassed by Health.
Yeah. But that's also some heavy shit to be dealing with with kids.
His whole internal struggle and seeking to blame God for the fact that he can't control where his mind goes.
Oh, picture your dad in that. My kid didn't watch The Hunchback of Notre Dame with me. She was taking a nap, and now I'm so glad she was. Because, Jesus Christ, why is he angry, Dad? Well, you see, Esmeralda has you, right? And and he wants to touch the boobs, and he can't because he's a devout follower of God. and God says thou shalt not be boobs, you see. And unfortunately, Esmeralda's boobs are smoking hot. Have you seen the pornography with her in it? It's amazing. So that's the problem, you see, Lily, is that Frollo wants to touch boobs, and God says you can't, and now he's struggling.
And
yeah,
rather than, and again, if I could briefly, anyone who blames women for looking attractive, and if you have not the mental discipline to control your own thoughts and actions a little bit, the issue is with you, my friend.
Isn't that always the way, though? You there, you with the titties. You're too attractive.
Wear this burqa. I only half joke about that. That seems to be the... Look, I am not up to speed on Islam. I don't wish to insult followers of the Muslim faith.
It did, though, and it was hilarious.
The impression I get out of the law that says women shall be covered head to toe is we can't govern our own thoughts. Remove temptation. You're the problem.
That's actually kind of it, though. Like, if you see, honest portrayals of men in the Islamic culture, that's kind of what you're getting, is basically it's your own fault for being hot and having boobs, so go do something about it before you wreck the country.
Yeah, and it's a horribly fallacious line of logic, and it leads to all kinds of problems, such as Claude Frollo deciding to burn down the city. He couldn't find somebody else. This is Paris. There are prostitutes by the dozen.
Look, and I don't want to get off on like a political thing here, but we all know that despite the rhetoric, there was some terrible things going on within the Catholic Church. Any institution with powerful people, you're going to be saying one thing and doing another.
There was actually, when this came out, because in the book, Frollo is the priest. He's the archdeacon of Notre Dame. To avoid ruffling the feathers of the Catholic Church, they officially changed the title of Frollo. There is actually a different archdeacon, voiced by David Ogden Stiers. And you have Judge Claude Frollo, who is secular in theoretical power. And briefly, Tony Jay, who did the voice work for Judge Frollo, had a cameo in Beauty and the Beast as the asylum owner. Rich baritone voice, great voice acting from him as far as Frollo goes. But they very deliberately had to kind of separate him from the church, lest they offend the Catholics.
I'm just saying, he couldn't get some nun tail while, on the side. He, shut the door. Go, it's France. There's prostitutes everywhere. Go get one of them.
There are more prostitutes in France at this time than people.
It's not believable that he would burn down Paris because of Esmeralda. You know what I mean? It's
it's a struggle. And again, there are issues. I love that movie as a movie, but as far as a Disney kids movie, no, you're absolutely right. It is not one you should take the small children to see.
My daughter runs through the house and she says, "Daddy, under the sea," and she picks up her Little Mermaid toy and she says, "Under the sea." You know what she doesn't do? Run through the house, grab something, hold it over her head, and yell "Sanctuary."
No one does that.
I do with my pants. I run into the house and I rip them off and I hold them over my head and I yell "Sanctuary." And then my wife and daughter say, "Sit down, we're watching Sofia the First." Oh, look, Cedric has tried to steal the amulet again.
And I'm going to my apartment now.
Exactly.
All right. And again, Frollo as a villain is kind of awesome. The movie itself, there's plenty of issues. And we go from Hunchback to, I don't know who was in charge at this point in time, but we now get that 80s.
All right, a couple of things here. One,
we're talking about Hercules, and and I have nothing but good things to say about James Woods and his portrayal of Hades. So let's mock the lack of Eye of the Tiger as far as this movie goes.
All right. So aside from the fact that this is Rocky, this is the Rock. This was obviously an attempt to, I don't know what the fuck they were doing with the Hunchback of Notre Dame. First of all, Esmeralda, I don't care if she's a girl and she has boobs. and that was their attempt to sort of market to ethnic olive skin girls. I don't know what the fuck they were trying to do there, but she's not a princess. She doesn't count. The Hunchback of Notre Dame was a terrible idea as a Disney movie. So it's like the people at Disney.
She's not a princess. I mean,
yeah,
one would require the actual title as a general rule.
Well, I'm like, unless at the movies he becomes the king of the Quasimodo becomes the king of France and he marries Esmeralda, I don't see how they shoehorn that into anything. But so it was like the people at Disney are going, fuck, we've kind of hit a slump here. Pocahontas, not so good. Hunchback of Notre Dame made kids cry. You know, what are we going to do next? Well, let's fuck the girls. We're just going to market to boys now with the next couple of movies. So let's do Hercules. That'll be a great story, right? And we'll do sort of weird.
If you tell it properly.
and we'll do like a weird artwork kind of a thing, and we'll make it a very boy-centered story, and we'll just market to boys. And that's Hercules, right? So that's the first problem with the story. The second problem is Hades is to Disney what Randy Orton is to the WWE. No matter how many people boo him the fuck out of the building, the fucking company is still obsessed with this character. I don't understand why. Hercules has an 84% aggregate rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not the most. It's so unpopular it can stream for free on Netflix. Okay, as I'm finding out, any movie that doesn't stream. But here's the thing. If you go on the Disney cruise, right, Robert, your brother's girlfriend, your Aunt Tilly, you guys decide one year you're going to go on the Disney cruise. You know what you're going to get treated to? A Disney stage show hosted by Hades. You want to talk about irrelevant? Oh, my God. They made such a huge deal out of Hades, right? Who's I don't remember when this movie even came out, but
I'll tell you, it came out in 1997.
Okay, so a character who came out in 1997 and failed to do much of anything. Disney loves them some Hades. They don't care about the rest of this movie, and there's a good reason for that. But
dude, it has Danny DeVito.
Yes, as playing the part of Mickey. But I mean, obviously James Woods' Hades is a funny character, and he did a good job with the performance. But ultimately, it was a meaningless character in a movie that more or less flopped. In terms of long-term payoff.
But Hades still shows up because he's Hades.
Everywhere. In the House of Villains, he's there. The House of Mouse, he's there.
He's got a little thing in the House of Mouse where he tries to get Mickey to help him court Maleficent.
Yeah. He's got a whole, the company, Disney, is obsessed with this character. He shows up, and it's like, what movie are you from? Doesn't matter. Alice in Wonderland. It doesn't matter. I'm just Hades, and I'm awesome. And they just never let you forget it. It's the oddest thing. And that's kind of like most of what I have to say about the whole Hercules experiment was this isn't a movie. It's sort of James Woods doing stand-up for an hour and a half.
Interesting you should mention that because he actually ad-libbed most of his dialogue. Like 90%. All of his character interactions, like especially the ones with Meg, I think, they let him go. And he just kind of came up with what happened.
And it seems like it. And that's all there is to say about Hercules. It's a badly told Rocky story with James Woods doing stand-up, and that's the only memorable thing about it, other than the artwork.
Yeah, the artwork is... it's a tad odd, but... And you're right. I take it that you're right about Disney just having Hades everywhere, and it's sad because he actually looks kind of cool as far as concept design, and James Woods' performance was pretty good, but crappy movie. He was kind of irrelevant to the movie itself. I mean, yes, he provides... That movie is not about Hades trying to take over Olympus. It's about Hercules trying to rejoin the gods.
Yeah.
And Hades is just kind of there because we need external conflict to go with the internal conflict, I would assume.
I said this about Alice in Wonderland, and it applies to Hercules. This isn't a movie, it's a video game. And he's the final boss.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, well, which kind of makes me wonder why they went from that. We go from Hercules, Mulan is next, folks.
Go. Now let's reference my rant about how do you feel if you're a black kid in Disney, right? You know, they start marketing to ethnic girls, and they first choose Native Americans, then they go to Chinese Chinamen, and black people are looking around going, fuck, we're like the, other than the Hispanics, we're like the largest demographic group that's not white. Why are we being skipped? Why does Disney hate black people?
I don't know. I wish I did. But yeah, we go to Mulan now, and I debated whether or not Shan Yu merits inclusion in this list.
He doesn't.
Because he's not important. and Miguel Ferreira does the voice acting for him and does a decent enough job. But again, the story here does not need the villain. The conflict does not revolve around Shan Yu. It revolves around Mulan and Will She Be Caught, and Eddie Murphy is singing gospel music as a miniature dragon. And dude, I rewatched this movie, not in preparation for this, but a while ago. Two things stand out that I realized is kind of in retrospect are kind of awesome. One, the Emperor is voiced by Mr. Miyagi himself.
Yep.
And two, George Takei does the eldest ancestor.
Now, is it Fa Zhu who is like the chauvinist, guy who, like, you think any minute now he's going to be the villain, but he ends up, like, not necessarily being...
that's
Shifu?
Yeah. He's the Emperor's little... I don't know. He's the Emperor's little, like, bitch dog. I don't know. Who he sticks with the captain because he wants... I mean, he's just like the recorder, and he shows up where a person of his stature would not, under normal circumstances, be located.
Right. I think he's the villain of this movie. When you think... Look, the movie is supposed to be about a girl who sacrifices herself to save her dad, and she joins the army against the Huns, right? That's the plot of the movie. So the whole thing is this is Tootsie, really. She's in reverse. It's where the boys are, right? So she covers up her boobies, she puts her hair up, and she dresses up as a dude. And the whole thing is like, she's got to try to fake being a dude in order to stay with the army, and bring honor to her family. And the whole time, it's just, the message she's getting is women are terrible, And then even though she shows that she's got true mettle and she can and she's a hero, the minute they find out she's a chick, this guy's ready to throw her off the cliff. You are a meaningless human being, because apparently at this stage in China, women were absolutely less than meaning. So really, if you think about like what her arc is as a story, he's the real villain. The other guy is the constant
opposing force.
Yeah, the other guy is just, essentially just a big dragon. He's a big monster that's attacked in China. That's sort of the big problem with the whole movie. But he's her actual villain in this, and then she defeats him. She becomes accepted, and
she actually gets offered his job.
Yeah, so everything that she stands for is summarily turned on its head. So I would say he is the more effective villain in this thing.
In terms of effect, all right. Now, after Mulan, I'm gonna just kind of list some of these, and if you feel the need to talk about any of them, please do so. But I'm just gonna. This is a extended dark age for Disney animation until they acquire Pixar, which kind of keeps the animation afloat until Disney gets its feet back under it. But since we're not talking about Pixar tonight, after Mulan, we get Tarzan, which, as mentioned, the action sequences are skateboarding and interspersed is Phil Collins music. And if that's what you like, go nuts. Then, okay, we don't count Fantasia 2000, even though the original Fantasia is pretty awesome. Then you have Dinosaur, which is a crappy retelling of The Land Before Time.
Hey, do me a favor, keep doing what you're doing. I have to take a 5-second break.
Okay. So, again, Dinosaur, crappy retelling of Land Before Time, which is actually one of my favorite animated movies of all time. But that's kind of what we get from... But Dinosaur, crappy retelling. The Emperor's New Groove, which is kind of a guilty pleasure of mine, personally, just because that's one I feel when they created the concept of the Emperor's New Groove, they figured teenagers. That's who will market. That's who went to see it, and that's who still sees. But the Emperor's New Groove is more like a extended Looney Tunes cartoon than a Disney movie. And you have... It's kind of sad when Patrick Warburton is one of the best parts of your movie, and his
you're up to the Emperor's New Groove.
It's more like than a Disney movie in terms of its style and its pacing and everything. And Yzma's kind of a fun villain in that she's old and evil and whatnot, but she's trying to kill David Spade, and everybody wants to kill David Spade. So is she really the bad guy? And again, Patrick Warburton is Kronk. He's kind of the highlight of the movie. In fact, he got a sequel. Following Emperor's New Groove, we got Atlantis, the Lost Empire, which I've rewatched and I still don't remember that much about it. That should tell you how much I care about that movie. Just not terribly effective. Really sad. Michael J. Fox actually did what I thought was a really good job as the voice acting role for the lead. I think it was Milo was the character's name, who has one of the best lines. I remember this line. They're out at sea because they're going to deploy a super submarine, and he's going to go to help them find Atlantis. He's seasick. He's leaning over the side, barfing, as you do when you're seasick. And he looks down and he goes, I don't even remember eating carrots. Why are there always carrots? Which I laughed at. But yeah, again, Emperor's New Groove, just to kind of just to say to Mark, I felt like they marketed Emperor's New Groove at teenagers because that's who enjoys it.
Which is why the movie didn't do well.
Yeah. Atlantis didn't do well. Atlantis, I think, came out opposite Shrek. And the feeling within the Disney boardroom or whatever was that people didn't want a traditional fairy tale, so we got Atlantis. Shrek comes out, and hey, people did want a traditional fairy tale, even one with Mike Myers. Lilo and Stitch does not have a bad guy. Well, I mean, Ving Rhames as the as the social worker. I mean, again, there's not really a bad guy. Lilo and Stitch is just kind of an exercise in Hawaiian culture without a princess.
It's funny. I remember the marketing for that, and it was the traditional Disney characters like Cinderella and stuff looking absolutely terrified.
At Stitch.
At Stitch, yeah, and Stitch just kind of like comes in, like eats the theater and everything. It's funny, but it was one of those where you're probably going to reach a small segment of the population who are attracted to just that character, and found that movie entertaining. But again, you're kind of missing the point in terms of who your real audience.
Yeah, and I mean, I can rewatch that, and there are some laughs to be had. I mean, some of the stuff that the mad Russian scientist says that he programmed Stitch to is funny. When he's sitting there and Stitch starts having his mental attack of programming to destroy things. He's sitting there, the Russian is sitting there, he will now be inexplicably drawn to large cities where he will back up sewer systems, river stop signs, steal street signs, and steal everyone's left. What the f***? But I believe that's what you programmed him to do. And, of course, he's on an island where there are no large cities, and he spontaneously, faints because I can't carry out my preconditioned thing. Moving on. Remember when I said Disney doesn't adapt certain stories very well? Enter Treasure Planet. The story of Treasure Island is a classic. It's been adapted many times. Disney's version is not...
By the way, they tried twice with this. The other one is Muppet Treasure Island. Easily the worst Muppet movie ever.
Yeah, and which is sad because Tim Curry.
Yes.
It seems like whenever you tell this story to children, you try and make Long John Silver not a bad guy. He's a bad guy. Deal with it.
Or stop making this movie.
Yes. Let him be the bad guy. God. Okay, after Treasure Planet, you have Brother Bear, which I never saw, don't care about. Home on the Range, which I, again, never saw it, and there were cows. That's what I remember about Home on the Range. Chicken Little, which I have a horrible association with, because...
I thought Chicken Little was funny.
Okay, I agree it's funny, but I wound up seeing that because when it came out on DVD, I was working at Kmart. Worst experience of my life to this point, working at Kmart. To this day, if I'm having a bad day, well, you could be working at Kmart, and okay, that's true. And I wound up watching this 4 times, because I was working in the front area where they were showing it on the big screen TV, because we're trying to get people to buy it. And that's my negative association with Chicken Little. Not a bad story, not poorly told, just a really unfair negative association I have. Did you have anything to add to Chicken Little other than it's funny?
Nope.
Okay. One of the other things you'll notice about these movies that I'm skipping, not only are they not very good, they don't have a defined bad guy, which not only makes it less fun to talk about them on a show called Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, it drastically reduces the quality of the film. After Chicken Little, we have Meet the Robin, wherein we get a 1920s villain with the mustache and the bad comb-over and the bowler hat.
It's a revenge tale.
Yeah.
I mean, you
mentioned that you wanted to talk about Meet the Robinsons a bit, so I turn the floor over.
I just want to say that he's a very sympathetic villain, because when you first meet him, he's just doing dastardly things, and you're like, and you almost have this very saccharine milquetoast, everything is wonderful family. They're a little weird, but ultimately, this guy invented things and made the future perfect, and now cars run on dreams and pixie dust. You know what I mean? So it's like,
he invented magic, and so everything works.
Right. So you're like, why is this guy fucking with them, right? What's his deal? And then you suddenly realize that, here's this poor kid who all he wanted to do was play baseball and get adopted, and this guy who goes on to become Jesus completely fucks his life up. Now, granted, they made his origin of being a bad guy somewhat silly. It was just like, well, why, I think at one point they even referenced the fact that he's making a big deal out of nothing, but the rest of it was dead on. And so his whole agenda is to bring down this guy because he messed up his life, and he never left the room and all of that. So, and then when he realizes that he could fix his life and there's an opportunity to make things better, he is redeemed, and he gets it, and he plays baseball and he gets adopted, and life ends up working out perfectly. And then the only real true villain are the Terminator robots disguised as bolo hat.
Yeah, and I want to bring up, this was the first time, and I don't know in the chronology where this came out in relation to WALL-E, but here you have an essentially inanimate object in a bowler hat, and with without the ability to speak or whatnot, they do a good job of being able to convey emotion through an inanimate object. And I can't remember whether this came before or after WALL-E, because, hey, the best half of WALL-E has no dialogue. It's just WALL-E and you emotionally connecting with a robot.
Never saw it.
Really?
Yeah, I have not seen WALL-E.
It's good. I enjoyed it. But
I don't have any, it's not like I'm racist against robots or anything. It's not one of the Pixar movies that I ever bothered to see. So it's on the list, but, it's kind of why I wanted to sort of sit out the Pixar show, is some of these I just never saw, and I don't feel like rewatching them. That's why I was like let's just let Jeff do this since he's been dying to get on your show. But, WALL-E's one of those ones I've never.
Yeah, well, the first half he's like the last of his kind. I forget what WALL-E is an acronym for his designation, and he's just processing garbage on the wasted planet Earth. And the first act or so, he's completely alone. So all you have is just the robot. And what the animators are able to convey of his emotions, and then he gets a friend robot, and none of them speak. Their emission, their vocal range is kind of like that of a Pokemon. They're limited to saying their own name in various tones. And I bring that up because it's a huge credit that this character who never speaks is so darn endearing. But after Meet the Robinsons, we get Bolt, which might be the low point. I have nothing positive to say about this. It's a variation on The Incredible Journey, from what I can remember of it. Yeah,
never saw it.
But following Bolt, hallelujah, things go back on track. We get the first traditionally animated Disney movie since Tarzan.
It's a princess movie. It's a princess movie, and it's the beginning of the Disney revival.
Yes, and that is The Princess and the Frog. Now, I know you want to talk about this one, so I'm going to let you talk, and then I feel the need to bring up the villain voiced by Keith David, Dr. Facilier, but we'll get to that after you talk about what you like about the movie.
All right. I mean, when I say, why do I like The Wire, or why do I like The Princess and the Frog, and then the punchline is black people, there's an element of truth about that. I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood. I have a lot of affection for black culture and a lot of anger. Bill Cosby-like anger for what some elements of the black culture has done to itself. So part of the reason, so it's really true, part of the reason why I love The Princess and the Frog is it's an ode. It is a celebration of black culture. I absolutely adore this film. The animation style, the use of color, the music. I'm a huge fan of the city of New Orleans and New Orleans jazz, the voodoo culture that's part of New Orleans, all of it. I mean, it was like they took New Orleans and said, let's celebrate the non-tits part of it, and and make a princess movie, from Mark and his daughter, and it's just, I'm absolutely in love with The Princess and the Frog. I think it's a great, every element of this is pitch perfect. But this isn't just a review of Disney movies. We're talking about the villains, right? So they have.
That's kind of the idea.
So,
but I don't mind doing just reviews of the movies as well.
We got the Shadow Man, Dr. Phalastia, played by Keith David, and he's awesome.
Not Dave Keith. Important distinction.
Yes, Keith David. His whole thing is, he's trying to settle a debt, basically. Like, he got special powers, and, he's been mixing with the darkness, and he owes the darkness, and so he's kind of, we're back to Ursula. He is the skinny black version of Ursula. He tricks Prince Naveen, who in turn tricks our lead in this, Tiana, and and he's trying to get his evil plan to work out so that he's out of debt with the dark forces, and he thinks he's got this thing won, and he's just trying to keep it together. And there's a lot of really funny bits with the guy that was Prince Naveen's handler being turned into the prince.
I want to say like Lewis.
Yeah, and so he's trying to keep and like the magic keeps wearing off. So he's
blood.
got right, blood. So, but we're really back to a very strong character who isn't a buffoon, and and it's just and it isn't until Tiana is really able to give him the business that he's defeated.
If we could mention, he's successful in that he turns the prince into a frog and is trying to get out of Hawk to his friends on the other side, but he kills a major character. He steps on the Firefly.
Yes. But you know what, though? The Firefly got to join his true love in the sky.
Because all Fireflies are actually stars.
It's Disney. Get over it.
I know. Minor. That was like my only minor gripe with that. But given how it was set up, it was the only way they could have gone with it. But
I could talk forever about the other elements of this movie, but I'm limiting myself to the villain. And he's a strong villain. He has a great song. We're really the Disney got back to what it does absolutely perfectly with this movie, and I really can't say enough good things about it. Him again as the villain. He's not a buffoon. He's not an idiot. He's a hustler.
One of the things that he's not. He at the end, before he gets defeated, he has gone from being powerful, and he's summoned all these extra shadow dudes to find the frog because he still needs the blood to make the charm work. And Tiana winds up with it, and he now has to get it from her. And rather than try to force her, he tries to woo her. He tempts her with, "Here's everything you've ever wanted. Just give me that, and then I'll let you have."
Yeah. And
it's something different from Disney villains in general. He's not, again, back to Ursula, I'll give you what you want if you,
right.
sign your soul away. And it's the same kind of thing that he does. And then I also like his end after he's defeated, and not just because we get a reprisal of the Are You Ready kind of theme from his song, but his whole panicky, no, this is a minor setback.
Right. Give me more time. The check's in the mail. Would I lie to you?
Yes, his death scene is, again, if you're a great villain, you have to have a great death scene, assuming you're defeated.
Not fall off the top of a house.
And he has a good one. His being dragged to the underworld by the people that he, borrowed power from is a really effective end to his story.
And can I say we finally get, too many times in Hollywood, black people are celebrated for their most minstrel qualities, and Disney finally gets around to marketing a film to black kids, and they hit it out of the park. I've been rough on Disney this entire podcast for, they choose to market
some reasons to be rough. To be fair.
Well, they choose to market to minorities, and they start with like the lowest demographic population first. So, the only one they haven't hit yet are the Hispanics. So I've been told that apparently Sofia is supposed to be Hispanic. I defy you to look up pictures of Sofia. Her mom's got kind of an olive complexion, but if those folks are Hispanic, then I'm fucking black too. I mean, Jesus Christ. That's the only demographic group that Disney has not, and don't give me the Three Caballeros. That doesn't count. Donald's stuck in a goddamn sombrero.
I left off those movies because they're not feature films in the same. They're a collection of stories.
Right.
I mean, each film of those is usually comprised of 3 different shorter stories told by a group. Is generally that kind of gimmick for those.
Yeah, Disney really needs to kind of get it together because we now had, it was like yeah, here's your minority flick. Now we're gonna go back to focusing on what we do best, white chicks. So you've got, and I guess we'll talk about them next, but you've got Tangled and you've got Frozen, which, if those films were any whiter, they'd be translucent. So, we got to get, are we going to leave out the Hispanics here? Like the Mexicans don't have a rich culture that you can mine for a fucking princess story? Come on now.
I don't know. Apparently not, so far at least.
We need a story about the Aztecs. Give me a Princess Aztec story.
Oh, come on. We already had the road told. Granted, it wasn't Disney, but yeah, you kind of summed that one up. The sad thing about that movie, it was originally a PG-13 animation aimed at, teenagers to young adults, and then when they found out it was being marketed as a kids movie, they had to edit, like, a bunch of stuff out of it to make it a kids movie, and it failed.
Yeah. But
yeah, after Princess and the Frog, a return to traditional animation, we get Tangled, a $350 million budget CGI fest. And I'm not complaining because again, my issues with Tangled are limited. And you, I know, wanted to talk kind of at length about this one. So, Tangled, we have, I think it's Mandy Moore who does the lead female voice, who does Rapunzel. I forget the other voice actors. One of the things I remember about this movie is the character of Flynn Rider, real name Eugene Fitzpatrick, if memory serves me correctly. On all of his wanted posters, they don't get his nose right, and he's constantly annoyed by this.
It was fun. Look, it's a very modern movie. It's one of those. It's what they were trying to do with Hercules, but this one is actually successful. Again, they're sticking with what works. It's a princess story. It's a Grimm's fairy tale. These are all things that have worked in the past, and they work very well with this one. So it's not to bore the ADD generation. They threw enough modern tropes in there to make it funny, and the horse is funny, and the characters are very well drawn, and I don't mean just artistically, but in terms of fleshed out characters.
Brad Garrett just wants to play the piano.
Yes. Oh, that whole sequence is hilarious.
It is. I laugh my ass off when they do that. I've got a dream.
We're and they even went and they, instead of calling it Rapunzel, which sort of had just sort of reeks of old, they gave it a newfangled name, Tangled. We've got a mess going on here, and how is our princess going to get out of it and marry her prince? It's a very Han Solo and Princess Leia kind of a story, and so Tangled works, and I don't have any complaints about it. I did want to talk about the character of Mother Gothel, I believe her character's name is, as played by Donna Murphy. Okay. So Mother Gothel, right? First of all, you got to go back to Sleeping Beauty for a second, and you think about what happens to this family. They have this child. We talked about this in the last podcast. They have this child, and they as soon as the child's born, it's cursed. And now, unless you want to give away your child for whatever the reasons are, as I said in the last podcast, no one wants this to happen to them. They don't want to give away their child, but they feel like they're doing it for her own protection. This story is even worse. And this one, she stole it, okay?
For those of you who haven't seen it, just kind of briefly before Mark goes on his bit, the basic setup is like this: a drop of sunlight falls to Earth, it becomes a flower, and the character of Mother Gothel discovers that if she sings a little song to it, it will make her young again. And she then does this for a long time. King's wife falls ill, needs said sunflower to make her whole again, takes it, uses it. The child that winds up coming about is blessed with long blonde hair that has the magic of the sun in it, apparently. And in order to maintain her youth for further generations to come, Gothel steals the infant because if she sings the song to the infant's hair, it has the same.
So you have this newborn princess into the world who's celebrated, and the parents just love her to pieces, and then she's kidnapped. And unfortunately, you don't have. This joke would have been funny if I could remember the actor's name who said, I don't know who you are or what you want, but when I find you, I'm going to thank you. Liam Neeson. And they don't have Liam Neeson to say.
How can you forget Liam Neeson?
I suck. The whole joke is now ruined. I have clumsy waded my way right through that. But yeah, they don't have Liam Neeson to do that.
If you let my daughter go now, that'll be the end of it.
Yeah.
If you don't. I will find you and I will kill you.
Right. They don't have
Whoever's
him.
on the other end of that phone should have said, okay, bye.
Right. Nice talking to you. But anyway, they don't have Liam Neeson there to go track this chick down, so they've lost her for the next 18 years to make it legal. And and the thing of it is that like this is kind of like what you're saying about the chick from the villain from The Rescuers Down Under, but so much worse.
Oh yeah, she's such a backhanded. All of her. Oh, you could go out in the real world, but
you're such a dummy. You know, like this is like I don't know if you remember. I don't know if like you're a fan of Adam Sandler's stand-up work or like his comedy albums. But he does a skit on They're All Gonna Laugh at You called They're All Gonna Laugh at You, and it's like, Mom, we want to go outside. No, why not? They're all gonna laugh at you, and it just kind of goes on like that, right? Well, that's what she's doing to this poor girl. It's she's mentally crippling her so that she'll never want to leave the tower, so that this broad can remain young forever. She has no care in the world for this child, and she does everything possible, short of actually chaining her to the wall to make her believe that she's worthless.
She doesn't again, if memory serves.
Well, we finally get there, don't we? But in the beginning, it's just all of you're a worthless human being, but you can't call her a worthless human being, so she does it backhandedly. She was like, "Oh, honey, you're so ugly. It's just you scare the natives. You don't want to go outside. It'd be very upsetting for all of us. Just stay here where you can be safe. They're all going to laugh at you, Rapunzel." I mean, first of all, my heart broke for the parents who lost their child for 18 years. I mean, I can't imagine a world where someone steals my daughter and I don't burn down every fucking neighborhood looking for her. And I mean, and people listening to this podcast going, "Ooh, psycho." But I mean, the point that I'm trying to illustrate here is that, like, could you imagine having your child kidnapped for 20 years, and what kinds of things those people are doing to that child, because it's being shown to you in a Disney movie. It's sanitized, for children's enjoyment, but still, again, as a parent and as a viewer in the audience, that's the most horrible thing I can envision. And I don't, and I'm talking about it's worse than anything you might see in Saw or some shit like that. This is absolutely worse. But she's an outstanding villain. She's just, she doesn't have a plan. You know what I mean? This is one of those weird ones where there's no plan here. It's unfortunately she's just living life and staying young, and the kid finally grows a set and makes a run, and then it's about trying to get her back without completely showing your hand. So she's trying to figure out how to get Rapunzel back in the tower without saying, "Look, I just need your hair. Actually, could you fucking get it together and get back in the tower, please?"
But I can't cut it off you because then it doesn't work.
Yeah, right. The problem. That's the whole problem with the magic. So, she's just an awesome villain, and very different from the typical. This isn't. We hit a couple of patterns with Disney villains where they felt disrespected in their environment and they were out to prove their mettle, so they hatched this plan to become king of the universe. This one's just like, I just want to be young.
I'm just a self-centered egomaniac.
Yeah, I'm just interested in myself, and if you could get back in the tower, we can resume life. And it's
we
really
had a good thing going.
Yeah, like really, almost like in a mirror universe, in an alternate universe, you can almost feel bad for the mom. Rapunzel messed up her life, and then gets her killed.
Yes, because Flynn Rider cuts her hair, and that undoes all magic. Yeah,
I'm more willing to believe that Mother Gothel is misunderstood than Gaston the rapist, Jeff Harris.
There's probably some truth there. But yeah, I mean, I agree. She's a very good villain because, again, she's self-centered. The only thing that matters is what matters to her and how it affects her, and to hell with everything else. Oh, you just had an infant who's the pride and joy of your life. Nah, screw you. I need the hair.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just
oh, you suffering from vitamin D deficiency because you never get any sunlight and you want to experience the world. Nah, I need your hair.
I need your hair. Rapunzel is not a human being. She is an object. And again, if Rapunzel doesn't grow a set of balls and run out of the tower, you don't even have a movie because, like I said, she has no plan. She's a self-centered, horrible human being, but she isn't really a villain until Rapunzel leaves. Then she's got to come. Then she's got to come up with some Then she's got to come up with some like crafty plan to get her back into the tower of her own volition.
It involves Ron Perlman. Ron Perlman is the Stabbington brothers.
Yeah. That's really all I have to say about Tangled. It's an I don't know what there is to criticize about it. It's an awesome movie.
No, I'd have to rewatch it to remind myself of what my some of my criticisms were. Mm-hmm. And again, I assume they were the same way. If I want to. You can pick it really.
Yeah, if you want to nitpick, you can, but I don't see the point.
Yeah, I don't remember there being any major issues as far as
the fucking horse has too much of a thing going on. You know, why is the horse more of a soldier than anybody else in this movie? And really, why? What's the point?
Yeah, or the how the bunch of mercenaries that are able to infiltrate the castle. The prison of the castle, even easily.
I don't care.
I mean, nitpicking. But after Tangled, we had Winnie the Pooh, back to traditional animation, which again, no villain. Even though Winnie the Pooh was one of my favorite movies when I was a child and growing up and whatnot. Wreck-It Ralph, which I never saw. Odd, considering it's all about a bad guy, and he doesn't want to be a bad guy anymore.
Excuse me, I hate to do this in the middle of your podcast. Lily, what's the matter? What's wrong? What? Mommy, you should be sleeping too. Okay, so what do you need from me right now? And why do you have the thermos in your hand? Okay. Can you go back and lay down with Mommy? Why can't you? Daddy is still working. Daddy's going to be working for at least one more movie, and then I can come talk to you. Okay. Give me a few minutes, and then I'll come deal with what you're asking me to do, okay? Go lay down with Mommy. Parenting.
Yeah, it's you have kids. You have to do it. Then, after Wreck-It Ralph, we have Frozen, and you don't have to apologize for having to talk with your kid. Honestly, I would have more issue with if would rather do this than talk with your child when she needs attention. So,
well, I was gonna say she unfortunately did not nap today, so we just let her sleep, and she woke up right as we were starting this podcast, and I figured she'd go back to sleep again, but she just wandered out of the room and stood in the hallway for about all of the Tangled conversation. I'm like, come here. I was going to try to, hold her or something, and she's just kind of staring at me like, first of all, you're loud. Second of all, I need your attention. So I'm like, I don't know what to do for you. So I was like, well, I don't want to just throw the microphone down again and go, throw her into the bedroom. Let me see what she wants.
Okay, but, there's only one more that you specifically mentioned you want to talk about. I haven't seen.
Okay.
So, and that's because it's in theaters, and I like going to movie theaters. I try to be selective about it, and I also have issues with certain types of audience members. Sometimes it's children, sometimes it's teenagers who behave like children. Sometimes it's old people. I'm kind of picky about my theater going experience. I haven't seen Frozen yet.
Let me talk to you about Frozen yet. Let me talk to you about Frozen because I can't talk to you about Frozen. See. There's a twist. This was like the Disney movie as done by M. Night Shyamalan.
I know what happened.
I don't want to give it away for other people, who haven't seen this yet. So you can't talk about the villain. The villain is the twist. But I will say this: a couple of things about this movie of note. One, they were looking for a way to market Norway in Epcot. They found it with this movie. This movie is now linked to Epcot. The way that Cinderella is linked to France and Snow White is linked to Germany. If you ever go to Epcot, first of all, if you ever go to Epcot, you got to drink around the world. I know you're Mormon. Drink coffee, whatever.
I don't drink coffee either. Caffeine, man, it alters your state of mind.
Drink water. You're no fun.
I'm plenty of fun. I just don't.
All right,
do it without alcohol.
So people who aren't Mormons go to Epcot and they go to the World Showcase and they drink around the world. Right, and every one of the countries, Canada, England, France, Morocco, Germany, Italy, China, Japan, Mexico, and Norway, and every one of them had something linked to them, some sort of Disney character that is sort of the focus of that particular part of the showcase. And Norway had nothing. There was nothing going on in Norway. It had a little log flume ride that was kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean. That's about it. So now they've got it because Frozen is heavily influenced by the Norwegian and Sami culture. So now Norway is all about the Frozen movie and those characters. Again, another princess movie. Here is the big thing other than my whole, touring of Epcot speech I just gave. Here's the thing about Frozen that makes it different from every other movie before it in the Disney princess film. So what is a princess film, right? You have a princess who is your hero, and she meets her prince, and they live happily ever after. There's some, either it's a prince or it's a guy, and he becomes a prince, something along those lines, right? But it's always about true love. True love between a heterosexual man and a heterosexual woman, right? That's what Disney's trying to tell you. No on gay marriage, all on, heterosexual. Not in this movie. Okay, this movie turns it on its fucking head, and this is about the love between sisters. The prince in this movie and, and the true love and all of that takes a back seat, really, to these two sisters who are your main characters of the movie, one of which is an X-Man who is born with powers that she can't control. And they don't send her to Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Students because they don't know it exists at this time. But she's locked in a room, and she has to learn how to...
Well, you only have Sebastian Shaw at that point in time, I think, if we're going by the year that it was. And we're better off without sending in more mutants.
Right. So they don't know what to deal with, how to deal with her, and they lock her in the room, and the other sister doesn't know why they've locked her in the room, because she was almost killed by her. That's why. But it's weird because the movie is marketed that the girl with the Iceman powers is the villain, but as you'll find out in the movie, there is more than meets the eye with this thing. And again, it is about not the true love between a man and a woman in a heterosexual Christian marriage with Nancy Reagan and apple pie. It is about the love of sisters, and it was a very interesting take on a traditional Disney film. We saw it on the cruise at 12:01. It was the earliest possible time the cruise could play the movie. So it was really cool to have that experience. My daughter slept through the whole thing, so I couldn't tell you what her reaction to it was. But it was very well done. They hit another successful movie here with Frozen. Can you really quickly tell me what Wreck-It Ralph is supposed to be about? I've never seen it.
The main character, Ralph, is the villain from a arcade game, like 8-bit old school. He wrecks things, and you, as the gamer, you would play the character who cleans up after him. He goes to support groups for villains because he doesn't want to be a bad guy anymore. So he journeys through various video games, trying to I forget exactly where he's trying to go, so the big thing there is he leaves his game. Apparently a huge no-no within the video game characters. You stay within your game. He leaves to go on a quest, and he wanders through all kinds of other videos. It's like an homage and a love letter to gaming from like Mario Brothers to contemporary gaming. It's just kind of like a journey through it, from my understanding.
Does he ever end up in World of Warcraft?
No, I think he ends up in Halo.
Awesome.
So again, I haven't seen it. That's my understanding of it. So anybody out there, I'm wrong. Hit me up, Facebook, Twitter. Let me know I'm wrong. I am happy to be proven incorrect about something where most of what I'm talking about is guesswork from my end. And that is going to wrap up Disney Bad Guys. So, Mark, I want to thank you a lot for coming on for this one and for holding down the fort for the beginning of this while Comcast was not letting me make outgoing calls or receive incoming calls. Seriously, if there had been a fire, we would have been in serious...
You'd have been like sending smoke signals in the shutout?
Something like that, yeah. So
you would have been yelling out the window, why does the red man say how?
Why does he say ugh?
Yes. All right.
I want to you want to plug?
Well, first I want to thank you again for letting me come on. You're a very tolerant man. Because I've heard other guests come on this show, and I think the worst is, Sean may go off topic periodically, but I come on here and go into a full-scale comedy rant. So, and I appreciate you tolerating me and my my quirky rantings. So thank you.
Hey, it's your network. I mean, I'm part of your network. I'm not going to get all up in your business if you choose to have a brief comedy rant on here when we're talking about something.
Fair enough.
And I find them amusing. So,
That's good. But no, I have thoroughly enjoyed these two podcasts. I really looked forward to this all week. So I was glad to get, to come here and talk about something that I've, really become invested in over the last couple of years. This was a blast, and I truly appreciate you letting me come on and have these discussions.
Anytime you want.
Thank you, sir.
You have an open invitation.
The Rattledge Broadcasting Network, who hosts this show, we'll be getting up the latest Casual Heroes podcast. I'm a little behind on that. After the Ultimate Warrior podcast, which you can also find on the Rattledge Broadcasting Network, Gavin and Jed just did a WrestleCast by themselves. I got to get that up. And then I was on one last night previewing TLC. We're going to get that up as soon as Casual Heroes release it. So be on the lookout for that. Sean Comer and I have wrapped up The Long Road to Ruin for 2013 with the second part of the Die Hard series. We talked about Live Free or Die Hard and A Good Day to Die Hard. Go ahead and check that out. We thoroughly gave those movies, especially Live Free or Die Hard, we gave those movies a serious thrashing.
Which they richly desered.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard it yet.
Okay, they can hack the world. I couldn't make a 911 call.
Yeah, exactly. I said something very similar on that show. I can't get cell reception outside of the Y because of fucking trees. But, whatever. They can hack an F. They can hack an F.
Timothy Oliphant can.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. In any case, so go ahead and check out the latest Long Road to Ruin. Of course, Robert and I are Sunday night live, 9 o'clock on Eastern Standard Time on the Rattledge Broadcasting Network is the 411 Ground and Pound radio show. We'll be up against TLC this Sunday night, so for at least an hour of our show, I will be distracted. So there you go.
How is that? First of all, we will likely draw better than John Cena versus Randy Orton in a match that has Screwjob finish written all over it. I've
already gone on record as saying that if that doesn't end in a definitive winner and both of them end up pulling belts down, I'm throwing my TV into the street. So
you're going to be upset if they go with that, really.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Well, we'll be in the middle of a podcast when it happens, possibly. So I may start screaming, and it'll be more interesting than anything that's going to be on Saturday night between Demetrius Johnson and Joe Benavidez too for the flyweight title. UFC on Fox 9 will start at 4 o'clock on Saturday. I will be bringing you live coverage, so go ahead and check that out. If you haven't had an opportunity to yet, go over to the 401mania.com page. Check out Fact or Fiction. I'm in there with Paul Lapointe. And right now we are dead even. So if you like this podcast and you like my rants, and more than that, you like black people. If you like black people, vote for me. Okay. If you're not a racist, vote for me.
Yes, while playing the race card. That's a lovely bit of logic there.
Shut up. Tell me this is my network.
Hey, I voted for you. I'm just about to say.
I think that's it. Long Road to Ruin, Metal Hammer of Doom both return in 2014, and we'll keep doing the wrestling, the MMA show pretty much straight through into next year because it's on Sundays and I don't think it interferes with anything. All right, I think that's it. Thank you again for having me on the show.
Always welcome, and it's a pleasure to have you, Mark. For my brief plugs, in the MMA zone of 411mania.com, you can find Locked in the Guillotine every Friday. This week, I review UFC Fight Night Hunt versus Bigfoot. I preview UFC on Fox 9. And I go on a bit of an introspective journey through text wherein I try to figure out why I don't hate Mark Hunt versus Bigfoot Silva. So check those out. As Mark said, I'm on the 411 Ground and Pound radio show every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Feel free to call in if you're an MMA fan and you wish to join our discussion. We have lots of fun. Next week, here on Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, 411 luminary Jeffrey Harris will be making his Everyone Loves a Bad Guy debut, and we will be talking about Pixar villains or lack of happen to fall into that category. So tune in for that. After that, I think Everyone Loves a Bad Guy will be on hiatus until the start of 2014. That's not definitive. I will have a definitive answer on that next week, but that's all my plugs. So again, Mark, it's a pleasure having you here. You're welcome anytime, and I hope for your sake that the card on Saturday holds up as well as it should, because it doesn't look like it'll suck. That's about the best thing I can say about it at the moment.
I'm going to see The Hobbit on Friday. That's all I care about.
Oh, yeah. I hope you enjoy. I actually wonder if there's midnight showing available still for me, because hey, it's not midnight where I am. Power of time zone. All right, that's gonna do it for us. Brief link to Die Hard Part 3. Chess Story Arthur was the one who nationalized time zones.
Okay.
And Chester A. Arthur Elementary School that his kids were at. 34th president, no one knew it. Why? Because America, folks. We don't know of the lineage of our own leader.
Hashtag America.
Yeah. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us. So for the mandated reporter, who will be on the scene, who will be providing live coverage, for myself, I will say good night, everybody. Be safe, and I will see you back here next week.
So say good night to the bad guy.